I need you to stop what you're doing and go read A Letter to America. In reading the letter, I could only think of this tweet that I saw the other day. Under settler colonialism, any kind of resistance is branded as terrorist because the only acceptable violence is violence by the occupier.
Reading this letter, it becomes apparent to me that the actions of 9/11 and those acts committed against the USA and its people were all just the buildup of our government failing other nations.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Prepare. Let's talk about this TikTok drama. Well, it's drama if you don't like Osama Bin Laden. It's not drama if you're one of the influencers propagating Osama Bin Laden's letter to America. Now, this has resurfaced. It went viral with initial post of 2 million people, and now everybody's jumping on the bandwagon. So first, let's talk about TikTok. It's owned by China. We understand that. China doesn't even allow its youth to use TikTok because it doesn't want misinformation to manipulate its youth to create, things that are going on in America. So they don't even allow the youth to use it. Right now, 150 million Americans are on TikTok. 150 million Americans. That's over half the population of America. Gen Z is the biggest user of TikTok, which is the scary part. Because right now, the average time they're spending is over an hour. Some statistics I've seen as much as 108 minutes on TikTok. This specific demographic of users actually say they get their news from TikTok. So 15-second reels, all these shorts, these small, short, algorithm-driven propaganda, that's how they're getting fed this information. I saw a whole bunch of this stuff because I wanted to be researched before I got on here and started talking about it. The entire idea that Osama bin Laden's letter to America is somehow revolutionizing the understanding of our position in supporting the Zionist, in air quotes, is disgusting.
The way this letter is going viral right now is giving me the greatest sense of relief. If you're Muslim and you've lived in the US since 9/11, you know more truth than the typical citizen. Now it's all coming to light because of Palestine.
So let me first walk you through a few things. Osama bin Laden was born in Saudi Arabia. He was not an oppressed human being. He was the son of a billionaire. His father owned one of the biggest construction companies in the world at the time. His son got lots of money, including $250 million that he took with him to Sudan to fight foreign wars and kick off his jihad. He fought in Afghanistan and supported using his dad's assets, including construction equipment, to support the fight against the Soviet Union. These are all things that happened leading up to his radicalizing of going after the West, which the prime target obviously was America. 19 hijackers that he recruited, that he specifically campaigned for and funded, conducted the acts of 9/11, where 19 hijackers on 4 different airplanes killed 3,000 innocent people, to include children, innocent children. Now, these people who are on TikTok advocating and campaigning that this is insane, that I can't believe some of their words, paraphrasing some of their words, I can't believe what this letter says. They were right. He was right. Okay, let's talk a little bit about bin Laden and what he believed in. One, he believed in Sharia law. I mean, polygamy, if you're a man, is authorized under Sharia law as he interpreted it from the Quran. So he had multiple wives. In fact, I think he was one of 52 sons and daughters that belonged to his father, because his father also had lots of wives. If you're a woman, like many of the women who are on TikTok talking about this letter and how it changed their perspective on the Palestinian and Israel situation, you couldn't show your face. Because in Sharia law, you would have to wear a burqa. John, show them what a burqa looks like. It's not a hijab. Like, you can't show your hands. You have to wear gloves. You can't show your ankles. In fact, you can't show your eyes. You have to be completely covered. You can't leave the house because you have to stay at home. That's where your job is. if you go out into the world, you have to have a relative male escort. Oh, and guess what? The education that you want to pursue, the career that you want to pursue, you can't do any of that. The Taliban's buy-in for them advocating for their position politically was they were going to do a lot of the things that were done that happened post the Taliban, where we implemented a little bit of democracy, plugged them in where children, especially women, were allowed to go to school. That has since ended. Right now, if you're a woman in Afghanistan, you can't go to the university. And if you protest, they'll just take you and flog you. If you're a little crazy and you're doing some crazy stuff, they'll kill you. So one of the things you can't do is you can't cheat on your spouse, because if you do, even if you didn't, all it takes is 2 witnesses. If they witness it and say they witnessed it, you could be stoned to death. The protocol is they bury you up to your head, and the people involved, including your family members, hit you in the head with rocks until you die. Yeah, that's Sharia law. That's the Sharia law that Osama Bin Laden implemented. Also, you're barred from high heels. All your high heels in your closet, girlfriends, go ahead and burn those, because you can't have any of those. The sound of high heels draws men's attention. So in many countries where Sharia law is implemented, you can't have that. Yeah, the car you have in your driveway where you sought independence because you can go do a job. You can't have a job, but now you could drive your car around and do the things that you enjoy to do. You can't do any of that because you can't have a car. You're not allowed to drive. Oh, well, you can ride a bike. You can't ride a bike. You might think that I'm being facetious, that I'm exaggerating here. No, this is the literal truth. From a person who grew up a millionaire, this is not an oppressed human being. This is what he implements. This is what he implements after he gets his jihad on. This is what the Taliban, Saudi Arabia, Iran, this is what they implement. In fact, what's crazy is I saw a couple TikTok followers from the highlights of this that were gay TikTokers. And yeah, in America, you can get on TikTok, you could virtue signal to the world your position and how great Osama bin Laden is. But if you were gay in or under Sharia law, more like under Sharia law, you would just be executed because you can't be gay. They would throw you off a building. They would murder you. I've seen the pools where they executed gays. I've seen the buildings in Kabul where they used to throw them off for being gay. So yeah, you would be executed. Guys, this is a part of a generational issue that we're dealing with. I mean, here's what I'll say is a lot of you guys that are listening to this, hundreds of thousands of people that watch this, thank you, number one, for watching this, subscribing, and supporting our channel. You're likely the person who supports this ideology of being, I don't know, a decent human being, not being irrational, having ethics, a moral compass. But if you're not, then you're not raising your children right. And this is where it gets murky, because not raising your children right because you allow them to spend an hour plus on social media, where the number one root of girls' depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation happens to be social media platforms. If you're not raising your children and teaching them worldly perspective, they're getting their worldly perspective from movies, from music, from TikTok, which is why we have a generation of people who wear Che Guevara shirts, Omar Gaddafi shirts, who don't understand the tyrants, the oppressors, and the terrorists that these people were. Osama bin Laden killed 3,000 innocent Americans on September 11th. Unfortunately, we are living like it's September 10th with a mindset and a generational shift. Now, I'm optimistic about the future of America where a lot of people aren't. They see this and they go, holy crap, man, we're not going to survive this. A lot of these things are being propagated by the algorithm, by the Chinese, because they want to see us fail. As fentanyl is the number one leading cause of death between men in the ages of 18 to 45, as provided and facilitated by the Chinese, all of the algorithm is being manipulated and dialed up and amplified by the Chinese because they want us to be vilified. in a world stage. They want us to be divisive against each other. And they certainly want the youth of America to believe that Osama bin Laden is the saving grace and that he got it, especially when it comes to the Palestinian and Israel issue. Let me talk a couple facts about this issue that's going on right now. Right now, there's a battle. The phased operation of troops on the ground is taking place. We know that. They're already in Gaza. They already took Gaza City, the IDF has. And they're pushing across, showing the public through the national media exactly what Hamas is doing. Recently on the IDF's YouTube channel, they showed the basement of a hospital where they had a curtain on a wall. Why would you have a curtain on a wall? Well, that's where you videotape the hostages. They had chairs with lashings on the feet of the chair. They had bottles where they were feeding hostages and their babies. There's munitions, RPGs, AK-47s, all the armament in the hospital, right next to a sign that says World Health Organization. So the lies that are being told by the national media, because they're using bullet points for Hamas, are fiction. I mean, they're literally showing it, and there's still American national media outlets that say, we can't confirm this. You could literally see it. In fact, there are reporters that are embedded with the IDF who are seeing it for the first time. These aren't staged. These are videos of terrorists utilizing hospitals. It's been reported for generations. I mean, that Hamas, since its existence, has been utilizing civilian populations as shields and as bases of operation for their terrorist acts. So it's no surprise, but even when they're showing the evidence, it's not being shown because of the dis and misinformation. You have American politicians who are advocating for death to Israel. I mean, they don't have to say it when they're campaigning for the people of Gaza, saying we need a ceasefire and saying that the Israelis are Zionist. I mean, this is very complex as a cultural and as a historical issue, but it's not complex in the actual act that took place. Terrorists attack innocent sovereign nation, kill 1,200 plus civilians, and those people retaliate. Now, I get the perspective, right? I get the perspective of like showing babies and innocent people being killed. But what I don't get is the national media and American politicians calling out Hamas for their atrocities. Why is nobody saying, why isn't Hamas giving them power, giving them fuel, facilitating with the incubation infrastructure for these babies? All the electricity, the generators, and the incubator. They're literally trying to bring them in, and Hamas won't let that happen. Why aren't the American politicians up in arms? You know why? Because they don't want sovereignty in America. They don't like American civilization. They actually hate America. That's why. That's what I think this entire campaign is. My good friend Heather, who's an intel expert, sent me some things. She sent me a picture where there are people holding Palestinian flags. There were people dressed in IDF uniforms. Those are the first signs and symptoms of a nation losing its sovereignty. We can have all of those things because we're a melting pot of culture and of people from around the world, a nation of immigrants. But when we're not putting our country first, because nobody cares about the people of Lahaina, but everybody cares when you're a politician about getting their paycheck from Halliburton and from Lockheed and spending billions of dollars in foreign wars, that's an issue. That is an issue. So we are slowly, over the last 10 years, where social media was like, what is this thing? Losing our sovereignty, where now we have dialed it up and amplified everything, where in a very short period of time, in our lifetime, certainly within the next 10 years, certainly going to potentially lose everything. This American experiment has fragility, and we're on the cusp of losing it all. When you see Democrats going after Biden because of his support of Israel, when you have very liberal State Department representatives shouting at the press saying, why aren't you reporting on Hamas? Why aren't you saying that the numbers they're inflating, the atrocities that they're doing aren't being reported, you have the recipe for disaster. And I think that's what we're going to see. I'm going to note this, but you should understand this in the big picture. Israel had its back against the wall. A lot of people think Israel are a nation of Zionists. 1.6 million Israelis are from Palestine. They're Arab. That's right, 20% of the population of Israel. Nearly the entire population of Gaza is the population of Palestinians of 1.6 million, which is 20% of the population of Israel, is in Israel right now. 20%. And they're Zionist. 70% of Jordan are Palestinians. I've said this many times. King Abdullah, who is a partner of the West, who gets the ideals, does not want one refugee from Gaza in his country. Why? He doesn't want the extremism. He doesn't want the jihadist in his nation. I mean, he doesn't want his monarchy overthrown. Egypt, same boat. So who here is the oppressor? Who here is the Zionist? Who here is the oppressed? The entire Arab nation isn't supporting the Gazans. You know who's supporting the Gazans? Terrorist organizations. Iran, who's supporting Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis that are attacking not Israelis right now, they're attacking Americans. Right now, there's 25 plus attacks that we know of that took place, including many Americans that were injured. 5 American members of Special Operations Command that were members, I believe, of Task Force 160th were killed in an MH-60 during training operations in the Mediterranean. We are losing American lives, and this is just the beginning, guys. This is just the beginning. Look, get off TikTok. Make sure your children are not on TikTok because it is a cesspool. When I hear lawmakers talking about we need to ban TikTok, you know, I'm a big advocate, obviously, for the Constitution, period, but First Amendment as well. And man, I'm in a conundrum here. I'm like, I want people to have access to all the things because I want the information to get out there, good, bad, or indifferent. But the fact that China is facilitating all of these bad things, including fentanyl, where 110,000 Americans died last year of overdose, the majority of those from fentanyl, provided from China, and you got them manipulating this algorithm, maybe it's not so bad of a call to actually ban TikTok. It's a foreign adversary's platform being infested into American minds and our next generation. Where do we go from here? Where you have Americans chanting death to Israel, literally in a square, but it's Times Square. Where do you go when, like, the Democrats on the Capitol are being attacked by ceasefire protesters advocating for the ceasefire in Palestine or in Gaza and are literally attacking Capitol Police? 6 police officers injured, like hospitalized. 1 person charged with assault. Nobody else arrested. And now it's like the Democrats are seeing it for the first time, like, oh, this might not be political. This is a war of ideas, and we're losing. So maybe we don't need TikTok in our nation. Maybe just like the Chinese that restrict and constrain their own via the platform because they understand what it does to the minds. Their psychologists are reporting back what it's doing to their minds. And let's not mention that whole pandemic thing that took place. We won't go down the rabbit hole on that, but it came from China. I think it's pretty ironic that during APEC, this Asian Pacific, this big meeting of the minds from all over the Asian world, that Gavin Newsom decides to clean up San Francisco. I mean, you should be insulted by that if you're an American taxpayer specifically living in that area, that he admitted it openly. I mean, we could roll, John, let's roll that.
I know folks say, oh, they're just cleaning up this place because all those fancy leaders are coming into town. That's true, because it's true. But it's also true for months and months and months prior to APEC, we've been having different conversations.
I mean, he's literally saying that's the truth because it's the truth. I appreciate his candor and his honesty in that moment, but he could have done it the entire time. He literally could have cleaned up all the poop, the embedded feces in the cracks of the sidewalks of San Francisco, the needles, the homeless. Like, where the hell are the homeless? Does anybody know where the homeless is? Where do they shuttle them off to? But he cleaned it up for APEC, where G is literally getting catered to in San Francisco after he just visited as the governor of California. We just did this feature on Skid Row. Man, thanks for the feedback, guys. You guys are a big help. Tons of feedback, tons of comments, tons of engagement, and tons of people watching that stuff. I want you to see the truth from the ground. I don't want you to see the truth via a headline, a Hamas headline. I want you to see the truth of what's going on the ground. And certainly San Francisco cleaning up their mess because of APEC is alarming. But are you surprised? I wouldn't be surprised if Gavin Newsom was the one to step up. It's either going to be Michelle Obama or Gavin Newsom, the one to step up and actually run for president of the United States when they out Biden. I don't think Biden's going to be in the running. I think last minute he's going to pull out, and I think you're going to have one of these guys step up. And the fact that people vote for Gavin Newsom as their governor in California is disgusting, especially as somebody who was born in California, who started my company, Fieldcraft Survival in California. But I'm not surprised by any of this. I won't go into the election fraud. We posted some of that content on patreon.com/Mike Glover, the underground for this stuff. I'll save it for there. If you want to see it, just go to that. I can't even say it out loud because I don't want to be suppressed on YouTube. Let's talk a little bit about this hospital evidence. I mentioned it. Guys, the hospital evidence has been shown and demonstrated, but it's not being reported on as fact. This is a psychological operations campaign. This is a war of the media. The reason that we started this show called Prepared, why I do a long-form podcast called Mike Force, and I also do that on YouTube, is because I want to start getting the truth out there. I want to start interviewing people who understand those truths. And I'm not going to stop. I just recently posted on X, formerly known as Twitter, for the first episode, 001. I'm considering it 001 on the story on Skid Row. I'll continue to do that because I want to get that information all out there. Something that I'm going to do in 2024 because of your support. The fact that you financially support me on Patreon is I'm going to start a media company that is going to focus on telling the truth and talking about these issues, not from one side, not from a right-wing or left-leaning or left-wing perspective, but talking about it as a moderate, as a libertarian, as a freedom-loving American who loves this country, and getting feedback from people who are the same, holding the same value metric. Also, I'm teaming up with people who get it. The Andy Stumps, the Evan Hafers, the Chad Robichaux, the Jockos of the world. That's who we're teaming up with to make this happen because, I like Daily Wire. That's a good example of how this is done right. But some of their views are a little bit too far right for me. And I don't like that. I want some perspective. I don't want guys going after people. I want a conversation, and it's why we're going to launch it because it doesn't exist. Especially from a veteran perspective, we're going to do it. We're going to do it ourselves, and that's because of your support. I appreciate you guys. I want to tease a little bit about the trip that I took. I'll talk about this in the long form, educating you on all things preparedness on Mike Force. But Overland Hunt and Survive. It's an expo that I'm going to do next year, utilizing the assets of Fieldcraft Survival, my partners like ex-Overland, Clay Croft and Rochelle Croft, the leaders in that space, a lot of my hunting contacts, including Jocko and Origin, because I want to have an expo where you can interact with your family with these companies that get it. There are certain companies in this country that get it. You go into a Walmart and you make your decisions based on what's available on the shelf. What we started seeing early on, especially pre-pandemic, is consumers were making decisions, as they should, on things based on their values and how they align with the companies they supported. I like that idea because I support companies like Pendleton, that was an American brand that started in Oregon, Origin Jeans that I'm wearing right now, to Fieldcraft Survival, my own company. You know, these things that I make as a conscious consumer are things that I want you to be tuned into, and I want you to be able to interoperate and interact with these companies. And I think I'm going to do that in Bozeman, Montana at the X Overland Ranch. I'll get down in the weeds on that really soon. I want to plug our soft prep course, special operations prep course. We have a lot of special guests coming out to that. Jeff Teagues, a former troop commander from a special missions unit, will be out there as an instructor here in our facility at Fieldcraft HQ, December 2nd and 3rd. That's our special operations prep course. It's not for just men and women who want to prep for the military. It's for anybody who wants a little taste of what it's like to assess for special operations. Devin Soto, former Army Ranger, John Park, former South Korean Navy SEAL, Greg Lappin, former OGA contractor, police officer, and my professor at Fieldcraft Jiu-Jitsu, Rob Carey, a former 19th Group guy. He was my senior 18 Bravo when I was his team sergeant in 19th Group, former pararescueman. The list goes on. We'll have a long list of special guests coming out to that. You can sign up in the links down below at fieldcraftsurvival.com. Guys, I'm headed off to the underground. If you're interested in getting into the underground, it's the stuff that we talk about that we can't talk about on these platforms because we'll get suppressed. It's patreon.com/Mike Glover. I appreciate you. Until next time. Peace out, guys.